Our nation's top leaders presided over the parades today in Red Square to celebrate the ongoing victory over the United States. Premier Romanov himself presented the Order of Stalin to the hero of the campaign, General Vladimir.
We both know the truth, comrade. Just because Vladimir can retreat to Moscow more quickly does not mean he should take all credit, right? But no matter, let me share something with you. The human brain is a Pandora's box of electrical charges we can only begin to understand. Most brains are but receivers. However, some are advanced, sending and receiving charges as they choose. This is my psychic beacon. With it, we can send any message we want. We will construct this device everywhere. In the end, the Americans will be ours. Mind, body, and if you like, soul. Comrade, begin the psychic invasion in New York City. A victory there could not possibly escape Romanov's eyes.
Incoming transmission. Comrade General, the Premier requests that you capture the pathetic capitalist shrine in New York called the World Trade Center. After you overwhelm the American defenses in the area, plant a psychic beacon to secure our control. Welcome to New York, Commander. Capture the Allied Battle Lab at the World Trade Center and use their technology to build the psychic beacon. Training.
Welcome back, Commander.
New construction options.
So, I think there's a few things I need to point out right away. First,
Garrison.
Yuri doesn't sound the same when he's whispering and when he's not. It kind of ruins the illusion when you can tell which speeches are overdubbed just to get that more gravelly voice. That being said, there's also a little bit of a rewrite. If you notice, he says mind, body, and if you choose, soul. Not if you like. I guess it's just a small little thing to notice, but noticeable nonetheless. I should also point out that I believe several people in the thread mentioned that the objective is to destroy the World Trade Center, or that there was a point to destroying them, and we can see just by the objectives of this map, it's completely false. There's no reason to destroy the World Trade Center towers in this level, nor in this game. I think maybe there was a bonus in the first mission on the Allied side, but I forget if that was even the World Trade Center or something else entirely.
Training. Unit ready.
In a way, it kind of makes sense to want to capture the towers, if only because...
Incoming.
Comrade General, you may wish to move your psychic commandos closer to the enemy. You will find their persuasive power very useful.
As the two tallest structures, then they would certainly aid in being able to transmit radio waves. Somehow, I'm sure. Now, when playing this mission, you're given some special Yuri commandos, or Yuri units. We'll get to see them having a larger effect the further we go into the campaign. But the basic gist is that they can take over any one unit. That unit under your control is then able to do whatever you want it to, just like if it started out as your unit. You can send them off to die, you can have them bolster your own forces, whatever you like. And the bonus is that there's no range limitation. There is when you first capture them.
Unit lost.
In that they have to get it within a range for the Yuri commandos to ever do anything. But after that, you're free to do whatever you want.
Building.
It's pretty helpful in getting some very cheap, free scouting of the map.
Unit ready. Construction complete. Primary building selected. Unit ready. Our base is under
Now,
attack.
speaking of scouting the map, you'll notice that as a fairly dense urban setting,
Unit ready.
there's quite a lot to of buildings to either look out for or take over,
Building.
depending on what your preference is.
Cannot deploy here. Our base is under attack.
In general, it's suggested to have groups of 10 conscripts, or if you capture that barracks, GIs, to basically roam around the map and garrison any building you can take.
Construction complete. Cannot deploy here.
The only other thing you truly need to do, if approaching that tactic anyways, is to have a few engineers walking around and repairing buildings as need be.
Established. Unit ready. Training.
Now, if you wanted to play this in a, I suppose, more methodical manner, or if you just didn't like the idea of massing Rhino tanks, and honestly, I'm not quite sure why you wouldn't, it's a good idea to invest in V3 launchers, which is our new unit for the map.
Building.
V3 launchers are fairly simple. We've already seen them in the Allied campaign for sure, but the basic gist is that they're your long-range artillery unit.
Unit ready.
And while the Allies do have some units roam around here and there, there's nothing really in the way of anti-air defenses. None that I truly recall, anyways.
Tools are examining diagrams.
Just gives you a way to, I guess, take out defenses and advance positions like this barracks and the war factory to the
Unit
southwest.
ready. Structure garrison.
Moving. Vehicle changing position. Waiting location moving. Target sighted. Changing position. Moving.
Structure garrison.
I don't believe I've mentioned it either, but there are certain units that unfortunately aren't allowed to garrison in buildings. I guess technically it wasn't really as much of an issue to bring up when it came to the Allied campaign, specifically just because they have Rocketeers, GIs, the Chrono Legionnaires. They're not...
Unit.
The Rocketeers can't garrison because they're always flying. Chrono Legionnaires aren't a garrisonable unit because why would you anyways? So on and so forth. But when it comes to the Soviet side,
Moving.
your flak gunners can't. I'm
Unit ready.
not entirely sure if there's some lore aspect to it. I would imagine something about how if it might be too powerful in terms of gameplay, as flak troopers are
Building captured.
alright,
New
but
construction.
they tend to just be slow and vulnerable to anti-infantry tactics. If you could put them in buildings, you'd probably make them too effective. By that same token, you also have the Tesla troopers, and it kind of makes sense that they wouldn't be able to just because they're, I guess, too heavy for it. At the very least, it just, again, seems to shift the power dynamic, so to speak, too much in favor of the Russians if they had those abilities. Now, there's not much of a point for me to even have V2s, or V3s, sorry. They're great and all, and you can strike from long distances and so on, but it's not like the Allies in this mission particularly have some strong defenses. Pillboxes won't do that much against Rhino tanks. So it's probably more worthwhile to just constantly funnel out Rhino tanks from my war factories rather than stopping production, getting some V3s, and then having to protect them and slowly deal with any sort of threats to them. And that's not really getting into the fact that, as well, V3s are particularly vulnerable to the point where you kind of always want them far behind the front line.
Waiting moving. Ready, comrade. Vehicle
I think we'll see it a little later in this mission, but Yeah, having one of my V3s just get decimated, or actually multiple of my V3s get decimated just because I didn't really have anything to protect them. Yeah, it's my fault, but
Construction complete.
I mean, you'll see how fast it occurs. It's pretty bad.
Unit lost. Building
So V3s can't stop their attack. As soon as their rocket starts raising, that's it. They commit. And it gets kind of bad when you're starting to, you know, face check defenses and stuff with that.
on hold. Unit ready.
Now, the good news is that the World Trade Center towers are actually garrisonable. So
Unit promoted.
there's no reason, at least at this point, for me not to just fill them up with a
New
bunch of units.
construction options. Structure
But I
ready.
didn't do that.
I could be of assistance.
Checking design.
Building captured.
Checking design.
I learned a little fun fact not too long ago about how the psychic beacon actually needs, like, there's a time between the psychic beacon or battle lab selling, or at least going away, and the psychic beacon from appearing,
Building.
which is bad because apparently if you block the construction process by having any unit stand on top of it,
Unit
it
ready.
fails the mission
Training.
because the psychic beacon can't
Unit
build.
Ready.
And if it can't build, then surely it's not. It's counted as destroyed,
Unit
which sucks.
Moving.
ready. Unit
Also,
ready.
I have some flak troopers that aren't shooting apparently,
Unit
and I think
promoted.
that's maybe a function of like a waypoint that they're trying to get to that's not
Our
activating.
base is under attack.
So
Unit
be
ready.
careful with that.
Our base is under attack.
And since you don't have any means of actually having like a SAM site or anti-air defenses,
Moving.
Unit
you'll either
ready.
want flak troopers or flak tracks.
Our base is under attack. Construction complete. Unit lost. Unit ready.
Unfortunately for V3s, they also don't really have much splash to their attack, which means that those infantry there were rather safe against some pretty large vehicles or missiles.
Structure garrison. Unit lost.
And that was a pretty good example of how flak troopers can't garrison buildings. Instead, they'll prefer just shooting stuff, which is not great.
Our base is under attack. Building. Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit promoted. Our base is under attack. Unit lost.
I'm going.
Unit
Now, there's a
promoted.
lot of units that are spawning on the map, going around, destroying everything, and you don't really have to worry about anything. Just as long as the psychic beacon survives, you're completely fine.
Unit lost. Our base is under attack. Beacon deployed and online. Ore miner under attack.
Can't concentrate. Voices in my head. Victory to the Soviet Union!
Mission accomplished.
And with that, a really creepy old guy manages to convince a lot of people to support him. Well, at least Yuri doesn't have to be self-conscious about his hairstyle.